The maid entered the wrong elevator, and the millionaire interrupted a scheme targeting her family. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The service corridor behind the Ward Tower's lobby hummed with the low, constant vibration of machinery, a sound that always made Haley Reed feel small, like she was standing inside the ribs of some giant metal beast. It was nearly 11 p.m., long past when her shift should have ended, but a last-minute VIP suite request meant she was still in uniform, still carrying a stack of freshly folded towels pressed warm against her chest. Her sneakers, worn thin at the soles, squeaked softly against the polished tile. She murmured to herself, "Have to stay awake, have to stay calm. Just one more room, Haley. One more, then home." Her phone buzzed in the pocket of her apron. She didn't have to look to know it was her mom. The earlier message still sat heavy in her mind. "The laundromat rent is going up again. We'll talk when you get home." Her stomach tightened. The laundromat wasn't just a business. It was her family's lifeline, the last thing her father was still proud of, the only thing tying them to the neighborhood they had lived in for 3 generations. If they lost it, Haley shook the thought away and turned the corner toward the staff elevator. But her eyes were blurry with exhaustion, and her hands were full, and the doors that slid open at that exact moment felt like a small blessing. She stepped inside without looking up. Only when the doors began to close did she notice the reflective panels, the soft recessed lighting, the faint scent of cedar and citrus. This wasn't the staff elevator. Her breath caught. Before she could reach for the button panel, a smooth, crisp voice entered the space like a warm current. "Long day." She spun so quickly a towel slipped from her arms. Standing on the opposite side of the elevator was a man she had only ever seen in glossy magazine photos hung in the building's management office. Ethan Ward, owner of Ward Towers. Millionaire. The kind of man whose shoes probably cost more than her monthly rent. He wasn't on a call. He wasn't surrounded by assistants. He was just there, leaning casually against the interior wall, sleeves rolled up, eyes sharp, but unexpectedly warm. Haley felt heat rise to her cheeks. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to use this elevator. I thought it was the service one, I swear." Her words tripped over themselves. Ethan lifted a hand gently, not to silence her, but to steady the moment. "It's all right. You're not in trouble." His gaze flicked to the towels she clutched. "Double shift." She nodded, too embarrassed to speak. The elevator glided upward, the city lights shimmering through the narrow glass strip beside them. Haley's heart pounded hard enough that she wondered if he could hear it. Ethan studied her with quiet curiosity, as if trying to place her. She wished she had brushed her hair, or slept more, or lived a life where she didn't worry about overdue bills. But then something unexpected happened. The elevator slowed, not at a normal floor, but at the penthouse level. Ethan stepped forward, then paused, his hand hovering near the door control as though debating something. For a heartbeat, the world felt suspended, like the whole building was holding its breath with her. Haley didn't know yet that this wrong elevator ride would unravel a hidden scheme targeting her family, or that the man standing 3 feet away would become the only person powerful enough to stop it. She just knew that fate had a strange way of opening doors she never meant to walk through. Haley felt the soft chime of the penthouse elevator settle into silence, a silence that wrapped itself around her like a warm but unfamiliar blanket. Ethan Ward stepped out first, offering a small nod as if signaling she was free to go, yet something in his expression suggested he had not expected her to appear in his world tonight. She managed a quiet goodbye and hurried down the corridor toward the staff exit, her sneakers whispering against the plush carpet that felt far too luxurious for someone like her. By the time she reached the service stairwell, her heart was still thudding with the mixture of embarrassment and something else she did not want to name. The cool night air outside the building helped steady her. She took the late train home, leaning her head against the window as city lights streaked across the glass. Every time she blinked, she saw Ethan's face again. Not the millionaire face from magazine articles, but the face in the elevator, curious, attentive, unexpectedly gentle. At home, the smell of detergent and warm air wrapped around her as she stepped into the laundromat beneath their apartment. Her mother was folding towels, her movements heavy with the kind of exhaustion that does not come from physical work alone. "You are home late," her mother said, her voice soft. Haley nodded, forcing a smile as she grabbed a basket to help. A VIP suite requested extra service. It was not a lie, not exactly. She just left out the part where she accidentally rode a private elevator with the owner of the entire building. Her father sat behind the counter, dozing lightly in his old recliner. The laundromat's neon sign outside flickered, casting a faint pink glow across the tiled floor. The chairs were mismatched, the walls carried decades of family photographs, and the smell of clean cotton hung in the air. It was worn, imperfect, and absolutely theirs. That was why her chest tightened when her mother whispered. The landlord came by again. He said there are new redevelopment talks. He pushed another notice under the door. Haley's hands paused mid-fold. Redevelopment? Again. Her mother nodded. He did not say more, but he hinted that we might not be able to renew the lease next year. He said there are plans. Plans. That word felt like a weight pressing down on her shoulders. She finished the folding in silence, kissed her father's forehead goodnight, and went upstairs to the small bedroom she shared with her younger sister. As she lay down, her mind kept circling the same thought. The image of Ethan stepping out of the elevator, his brow slightly furrowed, as if he had been in the middle of something complicated. She wondered what kind of plans a man like him talked about late at night. She wondered if he even knew the names of the small businesses under his umbrella or the families behind them. And she wondered, though she tried not to, whether their worlds were already touching in ways she had not realized. The next morning came too soon. Haley tied her hair into a neat bun, put on her maid uniform, and walked back into Ward Towers with her badge clipped securely to her collar. The lobby gleamed under the morning light, fresh bouquets arranged near the marble columns. Everything smelled like money and new beginnings. She stepped into the service corridor, ready to clock in. But as she turned the first corner, she froze. Victor Hale, the building's director of operations, stood with two men in suits, gesturing at a digital tablet that displayed a map of several properties across the city. She only caught a glimpse, but it was enough to make her breath hitch. One of the highlighted plots carried a name she knew better than her own heartbeat. Reed's Wash and Dry, her family's laundromat glowing on a corporate map like a target. Haley remained completely still, her breath caught somewhere between her ribs and her throat, as if moving even an inch would make the glowing outline of her family's laundromat freeze into something permanent. Victor Hale swiped the tablet screen with rehearsed confidence, the two men beside him nodding with the sort of practiced enthusiasm that usually preceded decisions made far above the level of people like her. She forced her feet to move, quietly slipping past them toward the employee lounge, pretending she had not heard anything. But her pulse thudded all the way to her fingertips. By the time she reached the supply room, her hands trembled as she collected the linens for her next assignment. She kept replaying the image in her mind, that small yellow highlight over the property that held her entire family's past, their present, and their hope for a future. She pressed her palm against her apron, grounding herself. No conclusions yet. It could be a coincidence, a mapping error, a meaningless early-stage discussion that would never turn into action. But she had grown up hearing her parents worry over every rent increase, every new notice. She knew what plans usually meant for families like hers. As she stepped into the hallway leading toward the 30th floor lounge, she nearly collided with someone. Strong hands steadied her arms gently. "You all right?" The voice was unmistakable. Ethan Ward. She lifted her head and met his eyes. There was kindness in them, paired with a slight crease of concern that she had not noticed last night. He released her arms slowly, giving her space. "You look like you just sprinted up 30 flights of stairs," he said lightly. She tried to laugh, but it came out thin and uneven. "Just busy. Long morning." His gaze lingered a moment, reading her in that quiet way he had, but he did not push. Instead, he stepped aside so she could pass. Yet as she moved past him, she felt his attention still there, as though he sensed something was wrong even if she had not spoken a word of it. Haley carried the linens into the lounge, placing them neatly on the service cart. She smoothed the edges of each towel, a habit she developed whenever she needed to steady her thoughts. When she finished, she stepped back into the hallway, intending to head toward the next floor, but Ethan was still there, leaning against the wall, as if waiting for her. "Can I ask you something?" he said softly. She hesitated, then nodded. "Last night, in the elevator, you seemed worried before you even realized who I was. Is everything all right at home?" The question sliced gently, but precisely. Haley swallowed hard. She wished she could say yes. She wished she could lie convincingly. But Ethan's expression held no judgment, only patience. "It is just family stuff," she finally said. "Our laundromat has been under pressure for a while, and now it looks like someone might be trying to buy the whole block." Ethan's brow lifted, a blend of interest and confusion. "I was not aware of any active acquisitions in that area." His tone was honest, but Haley felt her stomach tighten anyway. She had seen the map with her own eyes. She offered a polite smile, one that did not quite reach her eyes, and nodded. "Maybe I misunderstood." She stepped away before he could respond. As she walked down the corridor, the air felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were closing around her. Ethan watched her leave, his expression shifting subtly, like a man piecing together a puzzle he did not know he was holding. And somewhere inside Ward Towers, a small glowing highlight on a corporate map waited to become more than just a shape. It waited to become a threat. Haley spent the rest of her shift moving through the hallways with automatic motions, as if her body knew the routine even while her mind spun in circles. Every time she replayed the image of the highlighted map on Victor's tablet, her breath tightened again. By noon, the building buzzed with the usual weekday rhythm. Executives in tailored suits, residents carrying designer totes, delivery carts moving with precision. Yet Haley felt as if she were walking under a different sky from everyone else. When her lunch break finally arrived, she carried her small paper bag to the staff courtyard behind Ward Towers. It was a quiet space lined with neatly trimmed hedges and benches that were always just a little too cold. She sat down, unwrapped her sandwich, and realized she was not hungry. Before she could force herself to take a bite, a shadow crossed her peripheral vision. Ethan Ward stepped into the courtyard, his hands tucked casually into his pockets. He looked like someone who never needed to hurry, someone who belonged in every room he entered. Haley instantly straightened. She had not expected to see him again so soon. He gestured toward the empty end of the bench. "May I sit?" She nodded, though her pulse quickened. He settled beside her, leaving a respectful space between them, the kind of space that made his presence feel intentional rather than imposing. "I checked on what you mentioned earlier," he said gently, "about the laundromat and the block being under pressure." Haley's chest tightened. She stared at the sandwich in her hands. "You did not need to do that." "Maybe not," he replied, "but I wanted to understand why you looked so distressed." She waited for him to continue, but he did not offer specifics. That uncertainty made her uneasy. "And?" she asked softly. His expression shifted, subtle but telling. "There are files I have not reviewed yet. Meetings I was not included in. Someone on the operations team may be pushing several redevelopment initiatives faster than they should." The uneasiness sharpened into something colder. "So the laundromat is on a list?" "It might be," he said, choosing his words with care. "But that does not mean it is approved." Haley felt a rush of helplessness. What did not approved really mean when the people making decisions had never stepped foot inside her family's shop? When the bottom line mattered more than the decades of memories held within those walls? She blinked hard, focusing on the way sunlight caught the leaves above them. Ethan's voice softened. "Haley, I can look into this more thoroughly, but I will not pretend I have answers yet." She exhaled slowly. "I just wish we had time. My parents are exhausted. And if another notice comes," her words trailed off. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan looked at her with a sincerity that startled her. "You should not have to carry all of that alone." She almost laughed, but not out of humor. "What choice do I have?" He studied her with a thoughtful stillness. "People notice more than you think," he said quietly, "even when you think you are invisible." The warmth in his tone caught her off guard. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and looked away, unsure what to do with the kindness he offered so naturally. Before she could respond, the courtyard door opened, and a staff member poked her head out. "Haley, there is a change in your schedule. You are assigned to the 38th floor conference room." The woman disappeared without waiting for acknowledgement. Haley stood, gathering her things. Ethan rose too. "What is on the 38th floor?" he asked. "Executive meetings," she replied. His gaze sharpened ever so slightly. I see. She walked toward the door, but before stepping inside, she glanced back. For just a moment, Ethan looked as if he were piecing together something she could not yet see. And somewhere high above them, behind glass walls and closed doors, decisions were being discussed that had the power to change everything she loved. The 38th floor always felt different from the rest of Ward Towers, as if the air itself shifted when the elevator doors opened. Haley stepped out quietly, balancing a tray of water pitchers and neatly folded napkins, the items trembling slightly with each step no matter how tightly she held her hands steady. The conference room ahead glowed with soft natural light from wall-to-wall windows, the skyline stretching like a painted backdrop beyond the glass. Inside, voices murmured over polished wood tables and digital projections. Most of the executives barely glanced up when she entered, but one man did. Victor Hale. His eyes flickered toward her with a look that made her feel as if she had stepped somewhere. She did not belong, as if even her presence threatened to disrupt something he did not want disrupted. She lowered her gaze and moved between chairs, placing water glasses carefully at each seat. As she reached the head of the table, her eyes caught a corner of the projected display behind her. It was a redevelopment overview, a list of properties with various color highlights. She saw the familiar street name first, then the lot number, and then, unmistakably, the small text, "Reed's Wash and Dry." Her breath hitched so quickly she nearly knocked over a glass. She steadied her hand just in time. She told herself not to react, not to show anything on her face. But she could feel the warmth rising up her neck. Victor's voice filled the room, smooth and confident. These acquisitions will be completed ahead of schedule. Early buyouts are already underway. Haley's pulse drummed in her ears. She did not fully understand corporate language, but she understood enough. Early buyouts meant pressure. Pressure meant families pushed out quickly, often without fair negotiation. She moved to the corner of the room and stood by the service station, keeping her posture neutral, willing her expression to remain unreadable. A moment later, the door opened quietly. Ethan stepped inside. He greeted the room with a calm nod, but when his eyes found Haley, something unspoken passed between them. A question, and a quiet concern. He took his seat, listening as Victor continued presenting charts and projections. But as Victor clicked through the slides, Ethan's expression gradually sharpened. His brows drew slightly inward. His gaze flicked from the screen to Victor, then back to the list of properties. When the map of Haley's neighborhood reappeared, Ethan leaned in just enough that Haley saw his jaw tighten. Victor kept talking, unaware or unconcerned. This block has significant long-term potential. The laundromat owner is in poor health, and the daughter works full-time. The timing is ideal to propose. Ethan lifted a hand. Where did this information come from? His voice was calm, but not casual. Victor paused, seeming mildly irritated by the interruption. Public records, local observation, a few third-party assessments. Standard procedure. Ethan tapped the arm of his chair lightly, his gaze steady and unreadable. I do not recall approving any accelerated buyout timeline. Victor offered a polished smile. It is a minor property, Ethan. Acquiring it early cleans up the portfolio. The word minor hit Haley like a stone. Her family's history, their sacrifices, their tiny corner of stability, reduced to a line item. She pressed her fingers into the fabric of her apron to keep her hands from shaking. Ethan sat back slightly, his expression controlled but colder than before. We will discuss this further later, he said. It was a simple sentence, but there was weight behind it. Victor nodded politely and moved on with the presentation. But for the rest of the meeting, Haley felt Ethan's awareness settle over the room like a quiet shield. As she moved between chairs to refill water glasses, he watched the slides closely, questioning figures, marking details, interrupting Victor more than once with firm, precise concerns. It was not loud. It was not confrontational, but it was unmistakable. Someone had disturbed the balance of power, and Ethan had noticed. When the meeting ended and executives filtered out, Haley gathered empty glasses, pretending not to feel the heaviness in her chest. As she reached for the last cup, Ethan approached her slowly, giving her space, yet standing close enough for her to hear him without anyone else noticing. I need to ask you something, he said quietly. She looked up, unsure what expression her face carried. He held her gaze, steady and sincere. How long has your family been worried about losing that laundromat? Her lips parted, but no words came out. Because in that moment, she realized something she had not allowed herself to believe before. Ethan was not just curious. He was alarmed. For reasons she did not yet understand, her family's fight had become personal to him. Haley stood frozen for a heartbeat, Ethan's question hanging in the quiet space between them like something fragile and heavy at the same time. She swallowed, unsure how much truth she was allowed to speak in a place where every word could echo farther than she intended. "We have been worried for a while," she finally whispered. "But my parents did not want me to feel pressured. They tried to hide the notices. They thought they could handle everything alone." Ethan listened with an intensity that made her feel both exposed and strangely supported. He did not interrupt, not even when uncertainty flickered across her face. "Why did you not tell anyone sooner?" he asked softly. She let out a small exhale. "Because what difference would it make? People like us do not get to decide which buildings stay or disappear. We just hope someone up there remembers we exist." She regretted the words the moment they slipped out, but Ethan did not recoil. Instead, his expression softened in a way she had not seen before. "I remember," he said quietly, "and you deserve better than being pushed aside without a voice." Before she could respond, footsteps echoed from down the hall. Ethan shifted back slightly, keeping a respectful distance as an assistant walked past them, offering a polite greeting before disappearing around a corner. Haley returned to clearing the conference room, her movements calm but her mind buzzing. Each glass she lifted, each napkin she folded, only emphasized the weight of the conversation she had just had. When she rolled her service card out into the hallway, Ethan was still there, waiting. "I want to look deeper into this," he said. "Not as your employer. As someone who believes something is very wrong here." She nodded, though anxiety tugged at her. What if digging only made things worse? What if shining a light on the issue brought consequences her family could not handle? Still, something in her chest loosened at his sincerity. For the first time in weeks, she felt a small thread of hope. She pushed her cart toward the service elevator, but Ethan walked beside her for a few steps, hands in his pockets, his gaze forward. "Stay alert today," he said quietly, almost as if speaking to himself. Something about Victor's presentation felt off. Haley felt a ripple of unease. "Off how?" He paused before answering. "Data inconsistencies. Unusual speed in the approval timeline." And his confidence was too practiced. She shivered slightly, though the hallway was warm. "Do you think he is hiding something?" Ethan did not say yes, but the silence spoke for him. When she stepped into the staff elevator, he rested his hand lightly on the door frame, not blocking her, just anchoring the moment. "If anything changes, if anyone contacts your family, or if you notice anything unusual, tell me immediately." The sincerity in his tone settled over her like a protective warmth she did not know she needed. She nodded, and the door slid closed between them, his face fading behind the brushed metal. The rest of Haley's afternoon unfolded in a blur. She cleaned guest suites, replaced amenities, and checked inventory, but her mind never fully left the 38th floor. Each time her phone buzzed, she felt a twist of fear that it might be her mother with bad news. By early evening, she stepped outside into the soft glow of the setting sun. The air carried that familiar mix of city breeze and the faint smell of street food carts. She had just taken 2 steps toward the subway station when her phone vibrated again. This time it was a message from her younger sister. "You need to come home now." Someone came by the laundromat asking questions about the lease. Haley stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, the city moving around her while everything inside her went still. The moment she had been dreading had arrived, sooner and faster than she ever imagined. Haley did not remember the train ride home. One moment she was standing on the crowded platform with the noise of evening commuters swirling around her, and the next she was racing down the familiar street toward the laundromat, her heart hammering with every step. The neon sign buzzed weakly above the door, casting a soft pink glow over the windows. Inside, the overhead lights were dim, and her father sat behind the counter with a worried crease between his brows. Her younger sister, Lily, paced near the dryers, her phone clutched in her hand. The moment Haley stepped inside, both of them looked up. "Who came by?" Haley asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Lily stepped forward. "A man in a suit. He said he was here to discuss the future of the property." He asked when Mom and Dad would be available to talk about lease transitions. Lease transitions. The words landed like cold stones in Haley's stomach. Her father rubbed his temples. He kept things polite, but it was clear he already had information about us. Too much information. He knew about my health. He knew you work nights. He knew our margins have been tight. Haley felt a chill run through her. She thought of Victor's confident voice in the conference room. She thought of the highlighted map. She thought of Ethan's quiet warning. Something about the timing felt deliberate, too precise to be coincidence. She took her father's hand gently. You are not losing this place. We are not giving up. Her father tried to smile, but worry lingered in his tired eyes. I know you want to protect us, sweetheart, but people like him, they have power. Haley held his hand tighter. So do we. We have history. We have community. And I am not letting someone take that from us without a fight. Lily approached and lowered her voice. Did you tell Ethan? Haley hesitated. Not yet. Should you? Lily asked. He seemed to care. Haley pressed her lips together, conflicted. She did not want to rely on someone she barely knew. Someone who stood on the highest floor of a world she could only clean the edges of. And yet, Ethan had looked at her today as if her family's fight mattered to him. As if their lives were not just small lines on a corporate spreadsheet. Before Haley could respond, the laundromat door jingled softly. All three of them turned. Standing in the doorway was Ethan Ward. His presence filled the small space, not with authority, but with quiet urgency. He stepped inside, closing the door gently behind him. I am sorry to show up unannounced, he said, his voice low. But I heard there was someone here asking questions. Haley's breath caught. How did you know? Because, he said, meeting her eyes, the moment you walked out of the building today, Victor scheduled a meeting with one of our third-party acquisition agents. I checked the logs. I came here to warn you. Lily exchanged a wide-eyed glance with their father. Haley felt a mixture of relief and fear swirl in her chest. They came faster than we expected, she whispered. Ethan nodded. Which means they are trying to finalize something before anyone can intervene. He looked around the laundromat slowly, taking in the photos on the wall, the well-worn counter, the baskets of neatly folded clothes. Your family deserves better than this, he said quietly. Haley felt her throat tighten. So what do we do? Ethan stepped closer, his expression firm and resolute. The kind of look that came from someone used to taking charge, but softened by something gentler, something meant for her. We start by stopping them, he said. And I promise you, Haley, I am not letting them take this place without a fight. For the first time since Lily's message arrived, hope flickered in her chest, small, trembling, but real. For a moment, the small laundromat felt suspended in time, as if even the hum of the dryers held its breath, while Ethan stood in the center of the room, studying every detail with a look that blended determination and something far more personal. Haley felt her pulse race, but not from fear anymore. Something was shifting, something she could not name yet, but it pressed gently against the walls of her chest. Ethan turned toward her father with a respectful nod. Mr. Reed, may I see the lease documents and any notices you have received? Her father hesitated, glancing at Haley. She gave a small, encouraging nod, and he reached into a drawer, pulling out a worn folder filled with papers. Ethan took the folder carefully, as if handling something fragile. He flipped through each page slowly, his brows drawing together with increasing concern. These dates do not add up, he murmured. And this renewal clause is intentionally misleading. Haley stepped closer, her voice soft. What does that mean? Ethan looked up, meeting her eyes. It means someone pushed these terms through knowing your family might not understand the implications. It was done quietly, and without the transparency required for a redevelopment proposal. Lily crossed her arms, her frustration clear. So they hoped we would not notice until it was too late. Ethan nodded. Yes, and they planned to use financial pressure and timing to force a buyout. Haley felt her stomach twist, but Ethan's next words steadied her. But they made mistakes. Big ones. And those mistakes give us leverage. Her father sank into his chair, relief and confusion mixing on his face. What can we do now? Ethan set the folder on the counter and spoke with calm confidence. First, I am halting all acquisition activity connected to this block until I complete a full review. Haley blinked. You can do that. I can, Ethan said simply. And I will. Then he turned back to the documents, tapping one page gently. Second, I need to know every detail about today. What time the man came, what he asked, and what exactly he said about the future of this property. Lily answered quickly, describing the conversation. Ethan listened with complete focus, absorbing every word. This confirms my suspicion, he said quietly. Victor pushed this deal behind my back. He used my authority to pressure your family, assuming I would never notice. Haley felt a flicker of worry. Will confronting him cause problems for you? Ethan shook his head. Problems for him, not for me. He paused, letting the weight of his next words settle. But more importantly, I will not allow my company to harm people who trust the roof they live under. That is not leadership, and it is not who I am. The sincerity in his voice wrapped around Haley like a warm blanket. Her father stood slowly, extending his hand. Thank you, Ethan. This place, it means everything to us. Ethan shook his hand with quiet respect. I know, he replied. That is why I am here. He turned back to Haley, his tone gentle. Tomorrow morning, I want you to meet me at Ward Towers. I will show you what I found in the development files, and together we will make a plan. Haley felt her breath catch. Together? A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Yes, because your family deserves to be heard. And because I want to make sure you know you are not fighting this alone. The dryers hummed softly in the background as his words settled over her, filling the space with a quiet promise. For the first time, the threat looming over their home felt less like a storm and more like a challenge they could face with real strength, because now, they were not facing it by themselves. The following morning arrived with a soft gray sky stretching over the city, the kind of calm that felt almost deceptive after the night before. Haley stood outside Ward Towers, clutching a small notebook in her hands, her breath forming faint clouds in the cool air. She had barely slept, her mind replaying Ethan's promise, her family's fear, and the unexpected hope growing somewhere inside her. When the revolving doors opened, Ethan was already waiting in the lobby. He was dressed in a charcoal suit, but his expression carried none of the distance she associated with powerful men. Instead, he looked at her as if this meeting mattered just as much to him as it did to her. Ready? He asked gently. She nodded, though her heart fluttered nervously. They rode the elevator together, the mirrored walls reflecting a version of her she was still getting used to. A girl who stood next to a millionaire not because of an accident, but because he had chosen to stand with her. When they reached the executive floor, Ethan led her into a private conference room. A large screen displayed a series of documents and timelines. On the table, a stack of printed reports waited for them. I want to show you what I found, Ethan said, taking a seat beside her instead of across from her. He navigated through the files, pointing out inconsistencies. Look here. Victor submitted this redevelopment proposal without required approval. And here, he altered the projected valuation of your block to justify early acquisition. Haley leaned closer, trying to absorb every word. He did all of this without your knowledge. Yes, Ethan replied. And he did it assuming no one would question him. Especially not someone who had more to lose than to fight. Haley felt her throat tighten. My family could have lost everything. Ethan met her gaze. Which is why we are going to stop him today. He pressed a button on the table. The door opened, and two senior board members stepped inside, both holding tablets and looking concerned. I asked them to review the documents as well, Ethan explained. You are not alone in this, Haley. She straightened as the board members sat down. They offered her polite nods, acknowledging her presence not as an employee, but as someone directly affected by the decisions made in this room. Ethan began. We have uncovered serious procedural and ethical violations regarding the Reed property. Victor accelerated acquisition plans without approval, suppressed required notices, and used personal details about the family to pressure a buyout. One of the board members frowned. This is unacceptable. We will need a formal inquiry. Ethan continued with a steady, unwavering tone. I am officially freezing all redevelopment actions connected to the Reed property effective immediately, and I request a full internal audit of Victor's recent projects. The board members nodded in agreement, making notes on their tablets. Haley exhaled, a slow, shaky breath that felt like a release. When the meeting concluded and the board members left, she turned to Ethan. I do not know how to thank you. He shook his head softly. Do not thank me yet. There is one more thing. He tapped the screen again, revealing a digital blueprint. Her eyes widened. It was her family's laundromat, Renovated, modernized, but still theirs. This is a proposal I want to present to the board, Ethan explained. A restoration plan, not a redevelopment one. Your family keeps the business. We support repairs, energy upgrades, and community programs. You remain the owners. Haley pressed a hand to her mouth, emotion shimmering in her eyes. Why would you do all of this? Ethan's voice softened. Because your family deserves fairness. Because you deserve stability. And because none of what happened was your fault. She felt something warm bloom inside her chest, gentle and overwhelming. Ethan, she whispered, you changed everything. He stepped closer, his expression sincere, almost tender. No, he said softly. You did. I just noticed. In that quiet room high above the city, surrounded by documents that once threatened her family, Haley realized something profound. Fate had not been cruel when she stepped into the wrong elevator. It had been steering her exactly where she needed to be.